Welcome to Suncoast In-Depth Podcast. My name is Brett Watson, and today I have a very special / famous guest with me, the famous Arlene Watson, my best friend, the best person that I know on the planet. I mean that. You've heard me say that off camera. But I'm so excited for this. I know you're a little nervous, but...
Can I do my disclaimer?
Yeah, go ahead.
Okay, where do I look?
Right there.
Okay. The thoughts and beliefs of Arlene Watson do not necessarily agree
Or reflect.
reflect or represent Brett Watson's views and beliefs.
That was totally her thing. I don't care. Okay.
Well, the thing that makes me nervous is that people will think that you believe the things that I believe. And
No, people think better of me when they know you, so I'm not worried about that at all.
okay.
Oh, go on. So, as you know, this is our Reconstruction Junction series, and I've been interviewing people. You've watched probably just one of them.
No, a couple.
That's what happens to a pastor, his wife. No. Anyway, and you have your own story, and I think it's a good story, and I think it's one that people can relate to. And it's a story that doesn't lead to what I've been calling throwing the baby Jesus out with the bathwater, at least not completely. One of my guests said, "Yeah, that's true." Oh, it was Chase. He said, "Right, I didn't throw the baby Jesus out with the bathwater, but when I threw the bathwater out, Jesus looked different."
Yeah.
So that's fair. I like that analogy, right?
Me too.
So we always just start off with, people telling their story. So why don't you just fly right into that? You have your disclaimer, so don't be afeared.
Okay. So I was raised a Lutheran, which was a very non-threatening thing to be at the time. Like there was no expectations and anything. It was just a fun place to go on Sundays and, sing in the choir, that kind of thing, and then leave and live life normal. But then when I moved to Florida in my late teens, early 20s, I guess, I don't know, felt a calling or just had a longing to know more of God and started going to a Lutheran church. But the Lutheran church that we went to was very evangelical.
Wisconsin Synod. Dun, dun, dun.
Yeah,
Go ahead.
Whatever that means. And so is that what Holy Cross was?
No.
Okay. The one that I went to.
Opposite
Yes.
end of the spectrum,
okay.
in fact.
Okay, good. Okay. So I, really started to dive into what it meant to be a Christian 24/7. And I was really excited to do it because I wanted to raise my kids in the Christian faith, and I wanted them to escape all of life's hard lessons that I had to learn, and I wanted them to live, this blissful Christian life and just have no problems because their whole life they've never known anything but Jesus. Mm-hmm. And so I did that, and I did struggle with
another Christian that never read the Bible. Okay, go ahead.
Yeah, that's true. So as I did start learning more and start reading the Bible and stuff and, met you and took your classes, we did figure out, I did struggle with a lot of things. And one of the things was that Jesus had to die for the things that I did, for the sins that I committed, that he had to die for me. And I never really could understand, in my heart, how is that payment for someone who didn't do it paying for me? It just didn't make any sense to me that the best person that ever is the Son of God is paying for what I did, and then that all of a sudden makes me okay. Mm-hmm. And then if I believe because he loves me, but then if I don't believe, then I go to hell. So it was just a real struggle for me. It's okay, so it has nothing to do with what I do. It has to do with what I believe. But if I don't believe enough or something, then I'm still not going to be okay because I'm going to go to hell. So I always struggled with that. Mm-hmm. I always struggled with the fact that what else was the things that, like, the Christian, the way that the Christian church was and the way that the people were, it was like, okay, so it's all about believing. That's how you're like the son, like that's how you're a child of God, is like because of what you believe. But then they were the ones that pointed their finger when you did something wrong, and they were the most judgmental people. And the people within the church would, judge us that are in the church. And so if it wasn't about what we did, why were they so upset when we got divorced? Why were they so upset when we, didn't do things the right way or didn't do things? So living in that environment, even though I thought that it was the right thing, I just kept feeling more shame and more shame because I wasn't who I wanted to be. I still had the things that I struggled with. And it was all because of my faith that I was okay. But that created a lot of shame for me. Mm-hmm. Do you get it?
Yeah, okay. Totally get it. So did you feel pressure like from me and, our friends, the other volunteers? Did you feel pressure to look a certain way, act a certain way?
Yeah, especially being a parent. Like, it wasn't, so much like when you say look, you mean like with my behaviors.
Yeah.
Yeah. Like I wouldn't let my kids watch, what was that cartoon that they all wanted to watch? Not SpongeBob, but the other one. Anyway, I wouldn't let them. No, it was one that all the kids watched or whatever. Rugrats. But I wouldn't.
Rugrats. I was going to say Bart Simpson, but
no. We never let them watch that either. But
true.
Like I never let them watch the things that their friends watched because I always felt like it was going to lead them astray. I wouldn't let them listen to
anything but Christian music.
Mm-hmm. We just really were very conservative that way. In fact, I remember buying a toy for him and one of my Christian friends buying a toy for Ryan. It was that anyway. I can't remember what it is. And I remember my Christian friends being like, "Oh, that has demonic power on it. You have to return that." And I did.
Somebody at Holy Cross said that?
Well, I was at Holy Cross, but I was also in a prayer group.
Yeah, right.
That was like a collective prayer group from different churches, and someone in there told me that.
Okay.
And so I, even the toys, I monitored the toys that they, watched and played with and stuff because I didn't want the devil to get in and stuff. And so I really felt pressure to raise them like a very conservative way. Mm-hmm. And, so I did feel pressure that way. Not so much because of, at the time, I just wanted to be the best Christian that I could be. It wasn't really so much that I felt pressure because of the judgment at that point. I just really wanted to be the best.
Yeah, the reason I bring that up is because I remember admiring you for being one of the few authentic people that was in my close circle. You didn't seem to let the judgmentalism of, and it wasn't, I don't want to paint Holy Cross this way because Holy Cross wasn't really this way, mm-hmm. right? It was a typical ELCA Lutheran church in mm-hmm. that respect. But our group, the evangelical group, there definitely was judgment.
Yeah.
And you always seemed like you wore your feelings on your sleeve and you didn't let that keep you from being you.
Well, I felt like if I really wanted to have an authentic relationship with God and his people, I had to be real.
Yes.
But that ended up biting me because my vulnerability in telling people where I was struggling would turn into correction and lecture and shame.
Yes.
And so I literally...
Did you feel like I did that?
No. Mm-mm. No.
Good.
And I literally... You gave me hope, actually. So thank you. But I literally felt like as the years piled on, I had more and more and more and more shame on my shoulders. And when I would listen to Christian music, I would literally get stomach aches because it was always, he's good, I'm bad. He's worthy, I'm not. He's big, I'm little. He's smart, I'm dumb, And it just really led to where I really truly felt like, in a bad sense, that I was nothing and that he was everything, which I know he is more than me, but he doesn't want me to feel like I'm nothing. But that's really where I got to.
And in a very real sense, you are everything to him.
Right. And so it was really hard for me. like just feeling like I never measured up. I never was good enough. I wasn't, raising, my kids, you let them have, let them see that, or let them do this. And, and then when they would do something that was not Christian, then it like reflected on me as a parent. And I just became like very like, I don't know, what's the word? Fundamental, or, just like.
You became judgmental?
No, I became more like where I wouldn't let their actions then were reflecting on me and the kind of Christian that I was. So I felt more pressure to put pressure on them to live the Christian life,
Yes.
And then, and through that whole time, we were at churches and, being judged and being hurt by people and, trying to stick it out and being like, okay, all right, I am, crap. And I'm going to try better and stuff, and just never getting there and just never feeling good.
Yeah.
And so my religion, like where I came, that I thought was going to be like my safe place and the place that lifted me up, really actually was like burying me and like making me very unhappy.
Yeah.
And so then I kind of just, put my hands up and was like, I'm done. I'm done with people. I don't want to know people. I don't want to know Christians, and that kind of thing. And where I was with that. And
so give us a time frame. Like, when did that really start to happen?
I mean, I guess it started like when the first time was when I had my divorce, when I got divorced the first time. Well, the only time. And,
I was going to say, are you telling me something?
And so I had, so I guess after, that hurt was a really big one. And then, and just after that, just like little things, like little breakdowns, like, people didn't like the way we were doing things in our church, and people didn't, and just like the fact that they were like, we're with you, we're like in this relationship where we commit to each other, as friends and like Jesus followers and stuff. And then all of a sudden you do one thing they don't like and they just turn around and leave you. I'm like, enough. I've had enough of people. I don't want to hang out with Christians. And then I was seeing like in the real world that the kindest, most loving Jesus-like people were people who my church friends would call pagans.
Yeah.
And so it was like, okay, so you're the one that's hurting me and biting me all the time, and you're the ones that, the outside world is like loving me and accepting me. And it just was like such a conflict within me that I just didn't even really want to be at church. But, being your wife, that wasn't possible. So I basically shut down, probably for quite a while.
Yeah.
I just was there in body, and but never looked forward to it. Never was like, oh yeah, we're going to church. I'm going to be refreshed. I'm going to see my friends. It wasn't like that for a long time too.
Yeah.
And then I guess at that time, I guess you started deconstructing, but weren't really vocal with me about it. Probably because you felt like I couldn't handle it, which probably was true. And and
you nailed it.
So but we started coming to Suncoast because Ryan started playing the drums here. And then shortly after that, like Chase started being on the worship team, and it just like kind of like brought us here to visit more and more. And I just like started realizing like I don't mind coming to church, like I didn't look forward to it, but I didn't mind. It wasn't like triggering to me. It wasn't like hurtful to me. And so I kind of like let my guard down a little bit, like met a couple people, and I was like, oh my God, you're divorced too? Or, you drink? And then, like, you smoke pot, and, and you've been to jail, and just, like, meeting people that were so loved and so accepted here at Suncoast that I just was like, wow, this place is really different. And so that really started helping, like, going, you know what, this is more like what it should be like. It's not – I never saw anybody reprimanded for the things that they've done here, and I've never seen – people being ostracized because they weren't, the perfect parent or the perfect Christian. And so that started, helping in my healing a little bit. And then, still struggling with the, who was God, like, because I just started seeing him in a different way and struggling with who he was to me. Like, do I really have a personal relationship with him? Do I even really like him? Because so many, I just, had come out of this like really tight Christian society, like culture, and then I come into like one that's less, and I feel like it's more loving, and I feel like my soul's like, yes, this is the way it's supposed to be. But then at the same time, I was still struggling with who he was. And then at this time, you start talking to me about your deconstruction, and you're telling me, like, and you're taking classes, when you were going to school and you were like studying world religions and you were telling me about what different religions feel and believe and, stuff. And it really just opened my eyes like, wow, all right, God is good. Oops, is that okay?
Yeah.
Like God is good. He is, he really does love us. But he loves everybody. And it's even not about so much about what you believe. It's just about the fact that he loves us. And so I started to like relax a little bit more with him, be a little bit less defensive with him, and opened up a little bit more. And then I started seeing through the different religions. And like when you would, tell me more about your deconstruction and like, okay, so, when you would say that everyone's going to heaven, I'd be like, oh my gosh, he lost his mind, But then because of the other classes you were taking and just because of the way that I was feeling internally, I just started saying, yeah, that's true. Like he does love everybody. Why would he send people to hell just because they didn't believe in him? That's like so stupid,
Mm-hmm.
And so, so that started helping. And then, hearing that, here that, there's not a hell, and that it just was like all these things that made me question. And I would always say to you, like, well, what about this passage? What about this doctrine? Because I wanted to make sure that even though I was feeling better about the things that we were believing, that I wanted to make sure that we weren't being misled or down the wrong, road and stuff like that. And then seeing my children like struggling because they were old enough now to experience hurt in the church and ostracism, like in the church and stuff like that. And so they went through what I went through, and that like it angered me even more.
Mm-hmm.
And so then coming here to a place that was like accepting and like loving and not doing that to them, like started to heal me and started to help me.
Not only that, but the church had it done to them.
Right.
Yeah.
Yes. And so at that time, the Suncoast was going through a lot of that. And so it was kind of like a place to come to like heal and to like, rebuild and to like try to like, okay, so what do we believe, and I don't know, like I still don't know really all that I believe.
Well, that Suncoast, we took some time a few years ago when Ryan was in charge of kind of like staff management and stuff. Mm-hmm. Ryan Bauckham. We really thought through like what would be a belief statement, And I wrote out an excellent principle-based thing.
I probably helped you with it.
Probably. But at the end of the day, we just thought, why do we need a belief statement? Like, why is that even a thing? Mm-hmm. This is about... So Suncoast is purposefully not beliefs-centered, right? It's relationship-centered. Mm-hmm. And that's... Honestly, that's Jesus. Mm-hmm. He never had a creed written out. He never said, all right, I'm going to leave. I'm going to go back to the Father. Just make sure that you believe this, this, and this, and you're going to be fine. If that were an issue, you would think that the Savior of the world would make sure that everybody could get saved, right?
Right. Yeah.
But he never did that.
Yeah, and I kind of like that because with my relationships here at Suncoast, I really have gotten to know people that have shared their beliefs with me and things, and they're different. But I'm like, wow, that's interesting. And then I think about it, and stuff. So, and it's kind of nice. It's like we belong to the same body, but we are not always on the same page about things. And I like that. I think that's really good because
you're allowed to think here.
And the thing is that I always say to you, like, why do we have to spend all this time on this? We're never going to know, right?
Yeah.
We're never going to know. So we just got to like do the best,
And I'm like, 'cause it's fun.
So we don't know. So it's like silly to like argue and fight and, be like, oh, well, I don't believe that, so we're not going to be my friend, kind of thing, because we really don't know. Mm-hmm. But I think that the real, maybe, I don't know, like, do you think that like what I've been through with my mom was a reconstruction, or do you think that it was still more of my deconstruction?
Both.
Okay. So when my mom died in 2019, that was like a huge loss for me, like my best friend of like 50-something years.
Yep,
and
it was terrible.
And I missed her so much.
Still do.
And I really became almost obsessed about, okay, like what does happen after we die? And what is the afterlife? And where is she? And what is she experiencing? And, can she connect with me? Will I see her again? And all these questions. And I just had to know, because having the thought that, which, goes through my head, like maybe nothing happens and I'll never see her again, is just so devastating to me, or
But in that case,
I
it
wouldn't
wouldn't
know.
matter
I
because
know.
you wouldn't
I
exist,
know,
right?
but that doesn't help me here.
No.
Like, I'm never going to see her again. I don't think I could. Like, I need to have the hope that I will. Do you know?
Yeah,
You know
sure.
what I'm saying? So I really started like following and watching, near-death experiences. I started like really like tapping into like a lot of mediums and like finding out what do they say, and then and read some things on that, and I really feel like hearing people's near-death experiences and that they're all around the world, not all of different religions, and they all have commonality, really just like gave me hope that okay, this is something that is actually true, or it's just a phenomenon that happens to us before we die, which
there are solid arguments against that idea.
Yeah.
But I won't go into that.
Yeah. So anyway, so that started to give me hope. And then that kind of bled over into, okay, well, I don't want to wait till, all right, heaven's great. Like, there is an afterlife. That's really good. But I don't want to wait to see, to feel her or to see her then. I want to do it now, because I started like hearing about, moms who had lost their children and still like had a connection to them and stuff like that. So I was like, I want to have a connection with her here. And I don't want to wait. And so I really started watching mediums and started, hearing about people that like can see on the other side and talk to, people on the other side and stuff. And it also gave me hope because, not being the person that was being read, but just the person that was being read, confirming that the medium was indeed getting facts and things right. Well, how could they know that, right? So it must be that they're really connecting with the person. So I remember like, maybe a year, or maybe no, I think it was my first birthday without my mother. I came to you and I said,
That seems right.
Yeah, I really want to go and I want to see a medium. And how do you feel about that? And I was like nervous that you were going to be like, no, like, like we don't.
The Old Testament says, do not consult with the dead.
Yeah. And I thought that you were going to like be like, it's not probably the best thing, whatever. And so but I was so hopeful, and I wanted to do it, so badly. So you were like, yeah, do it, like see if it's going to bring you some kind of peace or something. So I did. And I can't say.
I want to give you my thought process on that.
Okay.
Okay. Because you were probably right to be worried about telling me that you wanted to go see a medium.
Yeah.
Because I definitely had, when you first brought it up, I was definitely like, And the reason for that is the Old Testament actually is explicit, like, do not consult with the dead. And I really wrestled with it for that reason. But then I've been studying the Bible my entire adult life, right? So I know the historical, cultural context, a lot of it anyway, around, those texts. And I realized that, so there were things historically that would have prompted that kind of command. There was a lot more reliance in surrounding religions and in influential religions of that day that had people relying too much on what others were telling them ancestors were saying. Okay, ancestor worship. And I really believe that's, and I hope this just helps people. That's why I want to bring it up. I really think that that's where the commandment's coming from, because of the prevalence of ancestor worship, basically. Okay? And that helped me a lot. Like, Arlene's not interested in worshiping her mother. She's not looking for answers for her own life from her mother. Right. She just wants to connect with her. Mm-hmm. That's different. Sorry.
Know that
it
she's
just
okay.
is.
Know that she's still near me in a way.
Yeah. So go ahead.
Okay. So I'm not going to it was a great experience.
And by the way, I thought it was all total BS too. Okay. And so I didn't want you to get hurt. And I have to admit, this is going to paint me in a bad light for some people, but it's just reality, that some of them were very convincing. The facts that they were able to draw upon and the reasons for the fogginess that are given and so on. Like, would you say that I'm a rational person, maybe even to a fault?
Yes.
So, for what that's worth, I was convinced by some of it. I do think that there's a lot of BS, but some of it's compelling.
Yeah.
But go ahead. Sorry.
So at the time you felt like that, or back in the day?
No, even at the time.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. So it was a good experience, an overall good experience. I didn't feel at the time that a lot of what she was saying at the time, I was like, I don't know. I don't know if that's true. That's true. There's a couple things that she said that were right on and that confirmed that it could be her, but connecting with me. But she basically told me that it was really soon and she was still adjusting to the other side and that she wasn't coming through very strong because she was in this like school-like setting and she was...
that was weird.
Yeah. Yeah, it was weird. You could say...
Well, I say that that's weird because I woke up prior to this, right? I woke up. In fact, it was pretty soon after she had died, wasn't it? Mm-hmm. I woke up from, in the morning and I told you that I had a dream about your mom. And in the dream, for lack of a better way to describe it, I said she was kind of like in like a university setting or something. Yeah. And she saw me because I was going to go over and talk to her, but I couldn't quite get over to her. And so she just looked up. She was actually leaning over someone else who was studying something. And that other person was showing her stuff. And she looked up and she saw me and she smiled and she went, "Hi." But she kept motioning like, "I can't.
Yeah. Yeah.
I have to do this. I'm busy.
Yeah.
So.
Because I could feel the medium struggling, with things. Like she would say some things like, well, right, like, did you ride bikes together when you were a kid? And we did. But, that a lot of parents, I'm sure, did that,
right. Yeah.
So I wasn't really convinced. But then she was like, what, I just got to be honest with you. She's really not coming through very strongly. It seems like she's like in some kind of school, like she's like in a school setting and she's just like really preoccupied. But she when you play your music and you dance around the kitchen, she's with you. And so at that point, I kind of was like, okay, that is true. I do that. I play music that my mom loves. And
just the other day you were doing it.
I do it all the time.
Yep.
And, back in the 70s Motown, and I'm like playing the music and it makes me feel closer to her. But she confirmed that I did that. So I was like, okay. And so she said, try back again, but I still haven't done it. And I think I'm afraid to, because if she still doesn't come through strong, I think I would be heartbroken. So I'm kind of like putting it off. But it did give me enough hope, and especially because you had that dream. And if you hadn't told me about that dream and then told me after, it probably wouldn't have had the same impact. But because you told me about the dream and then she mentioned that she was in the university setting, it kind of like confirmed that this was legit and this was really happening. And so that led me down more of, okay, so what is a school thing kind of about? And, following, different people, different, I guess they're all mediums, maybe psychics, I don't know. And hearing that.
Some are hypnotherapists and. Yeah.
And so in just my following them, I started hearing that, that is true, like that they do like a life review. They do like go to school basically kind of. And so it kind of was like, oh, wow, maybe that's really what she was doing. But then that led me to following different people, which led me to the path down to the hypnotherapists who like were going into, people who had unexplained pain. And their doctors would send them to this hypnotherapist to try to find out where the source of the pain was, because, like, apparently our body holds trauma. And, in this man's, Dr. Michael Newton's, experiences, he started talking about, he was expecting to take people back to their childhood to find out, like, where they had, like, this unexplained pain, but it actually ended up going to past life regression.
Yeah.
And so then that kind of led me down the trail of past life regression and life between lives and like all the things that happen. And so that's kind of where I am now. So it's so far away from evangelical Christianity that, I don't share a lot of my beliefs with people because I don't want to sound
freakish.
the negative, the
Yeah.
negative connotation that all that kind of gets. But it is bringing me like a bigger picture of God and bringing me more peace and like maybe like, I don't feel like I'll ever have the answers here. I hope that, one day when I get to the other side, I'm like, oh, yeah, like now I understand like why I had to go through that crap and, why this happened and everything. And, God is so good and, he is so love and stuff like that. So I have that hope now that that's the way it's going to be, but I still don't have it figured out. And I'm very resistant. Like when you bring me things and when you're like, oh, you should do this, you should. I'm like, nope. If you said I should do it, I shouldn't do it. I'm very resistant.
Pastor's wife.
Well, I don't know if it's so much pastor's wife or just the fact that I don't want anybody to tell me anymore what to believe. I want to kind of figure it out.
And I would never do that.
No, I know.
Yeah.
But I feel like because of how the church did that, like this is how it is, and this is what you must believe.
Yeah,
that
it's triggering.
I'm like, oh no, you're not. You tell me to believe it, I'm probably not going to believe it now. So I really have to kind of find it out of my own, and I don't like to be like that. I like to learn from wiser people, but because of my hurts, I find myself resisting that change. So it's really probably going to be a really slow process for me. But you know what? I'll just come back a couple lives and. Maybe I'll get perfect one day. I don't know. So,
yeah. So the life between lives thing is really interesting to me right now too, because I had done even before you had done that. I had done deep dives into near-death experiences, right? Mm-hmm. And seeing all the parallels in all of these stories, cross-culturally, cross-religion,
and I kind of think that was like so executed perfectly because it was like you went before me on pretty much everything. So when I did like be like questioning and stuff like that, you had already been there. So you already could like guide me through it and help me through it, you know?
Yeah.
So I think that's good. Because I think if I would have went first, like through there, I don't know. I don't think that would have really worked very well. I think that I would have hangups and stuff, right?
Yeah, and I think that that's good for our kids too in their deconstruction.
Yeah.
Although I just to be honest, like from my perspective, it's like, why don't you talk to me more about this? Or
Who,
with
me?
the kids,
Or the kids?
you, both, all of you. Yeah. Like, why don't you talk to me about this stuff? Like, maybe, like, tell me, like, are they afraid that they're too deconstructed for me?
You mean
to be
our older
comfortable
kids?
with it? Yeah.
Well, I don't talk to you always about it because I don't want to sound like a freak and be like, shot down for what? For like the new things, Not that you would shoot me down, but that'd be like, no, that's not right, because it's like I want to get there myself. So a lot of times I don't.
I mean, Lauren does. She talks to me about it.
Yeah. Well, Lauren's too deep for me to talk to, so I don't know what she's talking about half the time because she's so smart and so deep, I could follow her for a little bit, and then I'm like, yeah, I think you need to talk to Dad. And she does,
Yeah.
And I think with Ryan, he's just in that stage too that he's figuring it out. And so when your parents have been your spiritual authority your whole life and you're trying to decompose, like get away from that.
Do you think it's hard for him to, I should have him on here. Do you think it's hard for Rye to separate me as a spiritual authority in his life, parental authority in his life, and the hurt that he's experienced in that world?
And I also think that...
Not from his parents.
No, I
but
think
from
that...
the religious world, Christian world.
Yeah, and I think that he maybe doesn't want to disappoint us, or like has a fear like... Or that maybe he hasn't seen, especially, in their older years when they don't live with us, maybe they don't see your deconstruction and your reconstruction, so they think that you're going to be the old guy that you used to be, because, kids don't usually sit around and be like, hey, Dad, tell me where you are with your spiritual walk,
That's true. Yeah.
So he might not know, and he might feel like you won't get it,
Pull the mic a little bit closer to you. I should have told you this a while ago.
Okay. Like that?
Yeah. I, of course, as a dad, I want them to talk to me.
I know.
But I've felt like that with Chase. I've felt like that with all of our kids, Chris.
Yeah,
but it's not really fair on my part
because
of all the reasons you just stated. But and Chris does. He'll call me and talk to me. He just did, in fact, last night. But not as, I don't know. It's probably my thing. It's my hang up.
Yeah, and I think that too.
Like, I want to help them, like I'm your dad,
Right, but they probably feel like
Kyle
I
never
do.
talks to me. He never talks about anything with me.
Are you getting my good side? Okay. Do I have a good side?
You do.
Anyway, I think that it's just the same way with me. Like, I want to figure this out first. I want to know what I believe first, and then I'll share it. And I think that that's just because we've been their spiritual,
Yeah.
Know?
That makes sense. It does.
So,
Yeah.
anyway.
All right. So you've talked about where you came from, what you went through for deconstruction, and you've talked a little bit about your reconstruction. So at this point, just be totally honest. I don't even need to say that to you. Do you feel like at this point in your relationship with God, even though you said like you don't know him the way you thought you knew him before, do you feel like there's more of a love connection with God than there used to be? Or is it just different? Or
I think it's more of a genuine love more than a fearful love and a shameful love. But there's also more of like I feel like I have a higher standing than I had before. Not, I know I'm little still, okay?
Yeah.
But I feel like I'm not that shameful little girl who was like
Can't get it right.
A pebble in his shoe.
Yeah. Okay.
I don't feel like a pebble in his shoe anymore. I feel like I'm the possibly rebellious teenager who's coming around to thinking that my dad's not so bad.
Okay.
Do you know what I mean?
No, that's good. Yeah.
And I know, I really do have a deep sense that he's good.
Yeah.
And that through my growth, I'll appreciate that more and more and see that more and more.
Do you know what pronouns God's using these days? I don't know. We just say he because it's...
Yeah. Because it's what I've been trained to.
God is not... He has no gender. He has no gender.
Yes. But that's how we were raised, right?
Yeah.
That's
right.
how we...
Yeah.
So it's like hard to change that. I think, though, that he's going to be better than I can see right now, and that I still struggle with him and still get mad at him,
Mm-hmm.
But I think I feel safer.
Yeah. Like you'll say to me, if something bad's going on, you'll say, I don't like this plan. I don't like this setup.
I know he's the maker of it, but I don't like it,
Yeah.
And
I wouldn't do it this way.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's a big one.
Yeah. So the rebellious teenager kind
Still
of figuring
there.
out that dad's not so bad. Yeah.
Yeah.
That's a good analogy.
Yeah.
You always have good analogies. You and Lauren. Yeah. All right. So sometimes I finish off this way. Like, if there was, people that are struggling with deconstruction, right?
Mm-hmm.
What do you feel like you have something that you could give them that could help them through the feelings of loss, grief, isolation, things like that? Is there something that you would tell them, that you would want to tell them to help them with that?
Talk to Brett? Not really. I don't feel confident enough in what I believe that it's... I mean, I would relate to what they were saying, and I think that I would validate what they were saying, but I don't know. I mean, I could just offer the peace that I have in knowing that I really believe that he's good, even though I don't always see it. But I don't really feel like I'm confident enough in the place that I'm at to really give.
But really, I mean, that's like, honestly, that's the best thing that we do for people when they're struggling and dealing with loss. It's not telling them what they should believe. It's being there, trying to be understanding and empathetic.
And just knowing that if I really do believe that God is good and that we're on this journey, everyone's journey is different, and just knowing that he'll get you where he needs you to be, or, or where you want to be. So what advice do I have? I don't know. Just be you. But I don't feel confident enough to just be like, oh, yeah. It's going to be fine, fair. Whatever,
Yeah.
So I don't usually give advice like that.
So one last thing. Why did you never play the organ for me at church? Or at least piano?
I did get the big butt, though. I don't know why.
No, I'm kidding.
I would have loved to play I would love to do it.
Yeah.
But.
Well, I love you so much.
I love you too.
And I'm so proud of you, and you really are the best person I know.
Thank you. You are too.
Oh, go on.
But I don't want to say it because then it sounds like I'm just saying it, but it's really true.
My best friend.
Yep.
All right. Thank you.